the age of about 30, he would say, look, you've made it. You've done it. You've accomplished everything. Go and make your own disciples. So that's just a really quick run through of what the education system looked like. So now Jesus, let's go back to Jesus for a minute. Jesus, being a perfect Jew, had to have gone through everything that we just talked about. I know we don't get a lot of information about Jesus' upbringing, but we do get some highlights. We get some highlights when he's about 12 years old. When he's in Jerusalem, what does he do? He gets left behind because he's in the sanctuary, astonishing all the Jewish leaders. He wasn't just in his hometown. No, that wasn't good enough. He went to the capital of the world, where the biggest and the best, to prove himself as a 12-year-old. What does he tell his mom and dad? Do you not know that I'm about my Father's business? They didn't understand. But he was setting the stones in place. Talk about somebody that we don't know. We have a lot of people in here that we do know who their disciples were. We know who the rabbi was. Easiest job in the world, whoever the rabbi was for Jesus. Can you imagine having somebody that follows you, that you're supposed to be teaching everything to, that already knows it and isn't bragging about knowing it? That can explain any question that you have for him? I would love to know. What was Jesus like as a student? Scripture says that he grew in wisdom, he grew in stature, and he grew in favor with man. But that had to be an easy job. And then we see Jesus when he goes into university, and then we see Jesus when he comes out of university. What is it that he gets to do when he's about 30 years old? He starts calling his disciples. He follows the education system. He is the perfect Jew. And the scripture says that Jesus went about the entire area of Galilee, and he spoke and he taught in their sanctuaries. Can you imagine Jesus coming in? I'm nowhere close. Standing up in front of and reading the scripture. He would have actually went over and sat down. He would have sat in the Moses seat, because they're going to read the scripture just as Moses would have given it straight from God. And who is in the church? Who's in the sanctuary? In my head, I've always thought, okay, this is the first time when Peter gets called, when James, John, when they get called. Who's this guy walking up to them and just says, hey, come follow me? That's crazy. I'm just going to jump off the boat and leave Dad fishing on a boat and go follow this guy. Am I the only one that thinks that? Because that's probably not what happened. It's what happened. I think we have it out of context, though. Because let me take you in your imagination on a little trip to Bethsaida. Bethsaida is north on the northern point of the Sea of Galilee. Small church. I'm going to imagine it's going to be smaller than this one. Small village. Bethsaida is the village. Fishing village is what it stands for. They're right there on the Sea of Galilee. You want to guess what the main occupation is? Everybody's fishermen. Jesus comes through with whoever his rabbi is, because that's what they would do. They would travel from church to church, and then they could sit down, they could read scripture, and they could debate back and forth. But imagine, just like we have here, in your mind, 5 little boys running around. Dark hair, dark eyes, probably a nice dark olive skin. Running around, being wild and crazy, I would imagine. Can you see it? We see it here, right? We know what that's like. But Jesus is on the north side of the shore. But let's put some names to those boys. One church, one community, probably, most scholars say there's probably 6 to 10 family groups that live in this area. Let's try to compare it to Simmerly Creek, Hampton area. 6 to 10 extended families, most likely about 500 to 600 people. Now remember, Jesus was born in Bethlehem, right outside of Jerusalem. He was raised in Nazareth. There's a city right next to Nazareth that's about 2,500, 3,000 people. They've got big amphitheaters. They have a university. Why does Jesus go to the other side of the lake, the Sea of Galilee, when he's already in the area around the big metropolitan? He could go back to Jerusalem if he wants to go be in the capital. But he goes up to where there's nothing. I mean, there's fishing, there's eating, and there's church. Just so happens that the people that live in that area, they really love their scripture. They love their word. They really keep it tight. So Jesus is going around and he's preaching and he's teaching as a student, because he's just now coming to be the rabbi. And he gets there and he sees these boys running around. Remember, this is one small community. Five boys. Peter, James, Andrew, John, and Philip. 5 of the 12. Out of one small church. When you look at the odds, it's just astronomical that he would pull 5 of his 12 when he has everybody in the world to pick from out of one small church, one small synagogue. Now let's jump forward a little bit to the point where, when Jesus was still in his university classes under a rabbi, he's going around, he's preaching and teaching. Where are these boys? They're in their first classes. They're just learning. They're trying to memorize the scriptures. They're growing up under Jesus' teaching. It comes to the point where they go to be tested. What do we know about them? What were every one of them doing when Jesus came to them? They were fishing with their dad. They were working a job. They did not pass the rabbi's test. And they were told to go back and pick up their father's trade. They didn't have what it took. Could they still be good Christian people? Yeah, they can go serve. They could still come in and listen to the rabbi teach in the middle class, the Bet Talmud. They could still go to church. They just didn't have exactly what it took for the rabbi to say, yeah, come follow me. But one day Jesus comes and he switches the roles. They were supposed to go find a rabbi and ask, can I follow you? Jesus switches it up. He comes to them. They knew who he was. I never grasped this for the longest time. I really imagined that this is the first time some stranger walks up and says, hey, Shannon, come follow me. I'm like, no. Who are you? What are you doing? They didn't ask questions. Peter dropped his nets, got off the boat. Andrew and James left their dad. They knew who he was. They had seen him as a superstar teacher. And they're like, whoa, this rabbi's open for people to come and join? Mom, Dad, I'm out of here, right? Can you imagine getting the full ride scholarship to, I don't know, whatever your favorite college is, UT, or maybe you're going to be a lawyer, you're going to go to Harvard, or somebody says, look, you got a full ride, it's all yours. You ready to go? Yes, I'm going. That's where these guys were at. They got to go and follow Jesus. They got to be the disciples. So these are not just the people that were trying to get in it for the popularity. They knew who Jesus was. They'd heard him teach. They knew there was something different about him. Eventually they got to the point where they understood that he was the Christ and that he was going to be the one to save the entire world. But they weren't good enough for some of the rabbis. Just like we're not good enough for some of the rabbis. I know I'm not. I wouldn't even, if I was to try to compare myself, I want to think of myself as being a disciple of Jesus. But if you put me up against a first century disciple, no, I'm not even close. I would have to work really hard for the next 10 years to try to just get through the first elementary part of it. But what happened? Jesus came along and says, you know what? Mike, I know you didn't make it with the other guys. Actually, I know you were with John the Baptist there for a little while. You was working with my cousin, hanging out with him. He may have told you no, but I think you've got what it takes to be like me. James, I think you've got what it takes to be able to follow me, to be able to learn from me, and be my disciple. Can you imagine what it was like? You probably know that. At some point in your life, somebody has come up to you and says, Joel, I know you can do whatever it is. I believe in you. I've got faith in you. Even when you don't have faith in yourself. I'll pick on Joel for a second. At some point in your life, you probably doubted how good you could sing, right? Probably nobody in here doubts how good you can sing. Everybody in here has had that point in their life, if you're a follower of Jesus, when Jesus came and said, I think you've got what it takes to follow me. I think you've got what it takes to be like me. I think you have what it takes to lead others to me.